Welcome to this week's Rapid Recap. I'm Sasha Evdokov, and it is May 21st, 2015. Now, this week's Rapid Recap, we are going to cover what is a stock telling you. And this really, the foundation behind this is really about communicating between you and the stock. So it's about relaying that information of what is the stock telling you? How is it communicating to you? And the question is are you listening? Are you able to understand that language? So stock communication is really what we're going to be kind of honing in and focusing about during this presentation and during this rapid recap. So we will cover a few different stocks. So I have ATVI, Baba, Facebook, Foot Locker, GMCR, GoPro, GT, JetBlue, OCR, SAGE, and Save on my list. And those are the ones that we will cover today here during this week's rapid recap. But the focus I want you to focus on during this week's rapid recap is hone in on what is a stock telling you. How is it communicating to you, and are you listening properly? And I'll relay some of this information along with some life examples as well. So let's kind of get started on this, and let's just take a look at a brief market overview. Overall, the markets are not as exciting as, let's just say, some days. Things are a little bit idle. So Dow Jones up 4 points. SPY, we're making 59 cents here. And the SPX is really just 5 points up. Now, you can see we're hitting nearly the highs here. The same with the Dow Jones. And the volume isn't anything exciting at the moment. So we're kind of isolating near the highs, and this could be building for something new. So to me, what is this telling me? It's telling me that we could be building for something new. It could be due to just the summer months. It could be just in the position of where we are in the market. There could be a lot of different things. And as we go into some of these stocks and we cover the communication behind these stocks, then maybe you'll start looking at these indices as well in that same fashion, or just a little bit differently. So let's take a look at some stocks here and kind of get going. So we'll start off with alphabetical order of ATVI. So ATVI, when looking at this stock, I'm going to just take a look at and remove this, and we'll just use this as a beginning example. Normally, we as humans have a very short sight, meaning we only see things about the size of a quarter. And if we were doing a video on this specifically, it would really hone into probably something around this area. So that's about the size of your thumb. So really, the majority of most people's eye focus is about this size right here. Now, the problem with these charts and monitor sizes is when we look at a monitor, we see about 20 inches, 25 inches, 32 inches, depending on your monitor. And a lot of people, they will focus in on still that specific previous region. So it'll be something along the lines of, let's just move this over. You'll really only see something like this. And this is what we're focusing on typically as humans, because this is what our eyes focus on. As we start moving things, we focus on specific points, and it's not a smooth movement really, because you have to concentrate on a certain point. And this is kind of the problem that happens when looking at a stock chart. So I might point this mouse over here, and you'll start looking at this point, but you're forgetting about the point over here. So for this reason, we have multiple time frames. And if you're not looking at multiple time frames like the weekly and the monthly, it's a good habit to get into, because now you can start seeing the high points and the low points and a lot of other things. So now you're compressing that little bit of view that you as a human can see, thumb size, right here in this one region. So we can see that right here in the monthly. As we look at it, you can see what's happening. We're hitting the highs here. Now, as we start going into the weekly, again, we can only see that amount. And you have to actually do some scanning with your eyes going from here to here. You're watching my mouse and you're watching this draw out these trend lines. And that is how you need to be looking at stocks. With some people, they really only just hone in and focus on that last little bit. So make sure you don't get wrapped up into that habit or that mentality when looking at a stock. So you have to look and train your eyes to see these things. So this way you can understand what the stock is telling you. If you are only listening to part of the message, then you're only going to get back a portion of what is being said or what is being communicated to you. So make sure you look at, the daily, what's being said, what is going on recently, what's going on here on the weekly, and also the monthly, because now it really gives you a larger perspective. This is about communication, okay? And again, since we only can see just that small little bit, it really then simplifies things for you. Okay, so I hope that kind of relays some information to you and just gets you to absorb some content that I'm outputting. That way you can decode what I'm saying and then use it to your advantage. Okay, so it's a matter of me outputting information right now to you, you decoding it properly, and also doing the application, applying that content. So make sure to look at multiple areas of the stock, because as we start talking about different segments that a stock goes through, if I start talking about this area, here's our A to B, B to C, C to D. You focus on these regions, but then we don't focus on the other areas. So looking at those multiple time frames, it's important to digest and understand the communication. So always try to communicate as great as possible. And in addition, try to listen as much as possible. And by this, I'm talking about listen to the stocks. Now, you can use this as well to apply to everyday life, the communication part in everyday life. I get a lot of feedback from people saying that the way that I teach, the way that I present is things are very clear. They're very concise. Now, they're not always quick because it takes me a longer time frame often to explain what I'm trying to get across or the point that I'm trying to get across. And that is because my goal is always to over-communicate, oversimplify things. See, in general, we use basic words to describe something, but in fact, it is actually better to show something than it is to just speak or say a word. If you're communicating one-on-one, face-to-face with someone. Sometimes I get emails from people that say, or ask me some ambiguous questions about how can we do that? And, there might be 4 or 5 other messages in there. And do that, what is the meaning behind the word that? Because we make assumptions that we already know and understand what the word that is, or the word it is. So if we're using the word it, that, he, she, any of these things, rather than using a name or someone specific or even adding the description behind it, it really makes things a little bit more difficult. So when looking at stocks, this really applies in the same way. So when you're looking at the stocks, first you need to know and understand the language. And the language here that we have is really crowd behavior. It's about charts, it's about prices, and it's about crowd behavior. And the language, the alphabet that we're using is the price history. We're using the volume bars. So all this is really telling us a story. It's telling us a book. It's giving us a history of what has happened in that conversation. Now, if we take this story and, we see what goes on, we notice this stock started to go down, went down a certain amount to a price level of about $18. Okay, if I said the stock went down, the stock went up, the stock went down, the stock went up, you don't know what's going on to the stock. The stock went down fairly sharply to a price point of about $18. It retraced nearly to a point of $22. Then it continued to sell off for a couple of months to $18.54. We retraced higher to the upside to about $24. And at this point, shortly after, the stock started to push higher against the $24 level, which was the highs. Now, when we got to these highs, the stock was pushing against it and finally broke out with heavy volume. So notice the description that I'm telling you and the stock that I'm getting into it. Now, all these things are going to tell you a message. So the question is how deep and detailed the message is going to be, and also how can you read it. Now, with stocks, we only get a certain specific message. We get the price, we get the volume, and it is our duty to understand the language. So in something like Activision over here, we have price, we have volume, and then we need to understand the language. The people that struggle understanding the language or don't understand looking at the charts, they will look for more indicators. They will look for something that substitutes that language to try and translate it in another way. Now, the problem with translations is they are not always accurate. You may get a native speaker, you may get someone that doesn't speak the language that well, or again, something in the decoding and encoding process, there's something lost in translation. So it is always best for you to learn the language and then again, make the application and adapt it to the stock. So that way you learn how to speak the language, read the language, and understand the language. So in this instance, here we're looking for the highs over here. Stock created this resistance level at this level. I'm waiting for that language. When is the signal going to speak to me, talk to me? And when it finally breaks through that, it's telling me, what is it telling me? It's telling me that I'm ready to go higher. There was some room to play around in the past. There was some room that I needed to just wait patiently. I wasn't ready to go higher or go to the upside. I wasn't ready to go, let's just use to the bathroom. I wasn't ready to go to the bathroom yet. And if the bathroom is to the upside, and we're just using the word to substitute things, so if I wasn't ready to go to the bathroom yet, we're waiting for this digestion period, And this can take some time, depending on what happened previously in the story, depending on what you drank in the past, depending on what you ate and how much fluids were built up. When you're ready to go to the bathroom, or in this case, when the stock is ready to push higher, it breaks and it's ready to relieve itself and move higher to the upside. And notice what's happened. Right there, the stock's pushing higher, breaking out, and we can zoom in and you can see that's what happened. The stock was ready based on what happened previously in the story. So I hope this kind of example illustrates things in some detail of what happened to the stock, and you can do this to any stock you like. Let's just take, for example, let's just do here, GT, Goodyear. It's one we talked about last week as well. And again, this story plays out, and it's a long story. Every day something is happening. If we break it down to the weekly, if we break it down to the monthly, you can see that last, let's see, what do we have? In 2014, on the March here, March 2014, you know, the story starts unfolding. We're reaching the highs. Let's just say we pick up the story there, even though their story has much more context behind it. So, you know, we're reaching the highs, we're watching a high point. The stock wasn't ready to break out higher. It wasn't ready to explode. It wasn't a ticking time bomb. So if we have a countdown timer and we're waiting for a price level to hit, the stock isn't ready. The bomb is not ready to explode. So we'll use a different example this time, so that way maybe it, you can resonate or connect to it in another way. So here, the bomb is still ticking around. Maybe right here someone's trying to defuse it. Then again, it starts ticking again. Someone's trying to defuse the bomb. Again, it starts ticking, diffusing it. And then again, it accelerates. The bomb starts ticking faster and faster. And then all of a sudden it gets to its countdown and breaks out and unfolds and explodes. And now it goes higher. Your entry point, of course, right there on the explosion. And then you get in and the stock moves higher. Okay, so here we have on the daily, you can see the high was over here, and in between we had a lot of different things that happened. The story, there's so many elements, from who robbed who, to who gave somebody a flower, to you know, who met someone else, to the coffee that they drank, to everything. There's so many little things. There's a mess. There's a clutter of communication that goes on. And if I tell you that this girl over here wore a yellow dress, does it matter what happened to the bomb? No, it doesn't. It's a story. It unfolds. You got to remember, what are you focused on in the story? You're focused on this one specific object, on this ticking time bomb, or this energy level developing. And when it's ready to blow up, when it's ready to go to the upside, when you're ready to start your race, when you're ready to go to the bathroom, when you're ready to do whatever it is, whatever example you want to use here, then that's what you're waiting for. But in between here, there's this noise. There's the little Red Riding Hood. What was she carrying in the basket? Apples. What color hair did the wolf have? There's all these different things that happen in between that are irrelevant. Okay, you're looking for that one specific trade for you, and it's about learning the language that the stock is speaking about. It's speaking to you, and you have to pick it up. Remember, the point of communicating is really to get a point across and communicate the language between one human to another, right? Or an animal and another animal. So the point to communicate is to actually get something across to the other person, to the other thing, to the other being. Okay, so if you don't get that point across, if you have something that's lost in there, there's going to be a lot of other variables. And the most clear way that you can do that, the most effective way, the better off you are. So there's always little things that happen when you speak to someone in person. There's going to be little details about their hair, about the t-shirt that they're wearing. That is still part of communication. However, what is the important point that they're trying to get to show you or to tell you or to get across to you? It's going to be different in every conversation. And the same thing here with stocks. So here we have Goodyear. We're looking at a specific line of communication. We're trying to pick up a specific message from that communication. And if I want to really know about how they, let's just say, perform exceptionally well on the sports court, or how they perform so well on the basketball court, then that is just something that I'm listening for. That is what I'm watching. If they're talking about swimming, then I may not care. If they're talking about skiing, I may not care. But if something about basketball, I care. And now my radar goes up, boom, spikes. That's what I'm looking for. All right, so that is somewhat in context what we're referring to, is listen to what the stocks are telling you, the communication. Now, you won't be able to learn the language until you learn about these different swing points. So let's go to another stock. Here we have GoPro. Some of you veterans in here know about the A to B, B to C, and potentially C to D patterns. So what is the stock telling you on the weekly? What is it telling you on the monthly? You're listening to these signals. If you know this is a swing point, this is a language. This is something you're looking for. This is part of the language. If you don't know what that is, then you need to build your vocabulary up, right? And I'm not saying vocabulary in terms of the English vocabulary. I'm talking about learning what a swing point is. I'm talking about the vocabulary of learning what a breakout is. I'm talking about learning how, not just knowing what they are, but knowing how to spot them. So this over here is a swing point, right? Here we have a trend line. So you're learning that, okay, now I see that this is a trend line, okay, and potentially this stock can head lower. By the way, right here, what we're discussing, we're giving a point across in the lesson, and I'm also sharing with you the stocks of what's happening. So you have GoPro, we have GT that we talked about, JetBlue. Again, here's a good one to communicate. We had some energy that was built. Stock broke out. This was our story, our most recent story. The stock went moving really well, and what do I always say? Take profits into strength. And then the stock came off the highs on heavy volume. And if a stock does that, you definitely want to be extra careful. Stock that comes off the highs on heavy volume, something is happening, something is going on. So if we do an example, you know, we have something that happened and an effect, right? We have a cause, and then we have an effect, went up to the upside. And then again, we had some cause coming in here and the effect. So there's always cause and effect interlaid in all these aspects. In all this movement, it's a lot of noise, and you have to read the signals. So what is the stock now telling me? It's telling me, as I zoom in, that coming off the highs on heavy volume, something is wrong. Something isn't happening correctly. Meaning, if we're talking about Red Riding Hood, maybe the Red Riding Hood saw the wolf. Something is wrong. Something isn't going correctly. So the question is she going to run away with him and survive? Is she going to run away from the wolf? Or is the wolf going to eat her? So are we going to come down or are we going to pop higher? You got to watch and listen for these things and watch what is the stock telling you based on the communication. So I'm going to change the language here and we'll talk specifically stock language now. So if it was a little more difficult to discern the examples, I apologize, but I wanted to use something a little more simple about communicating the language of stocks. Make sure you're listening to the stocks and what they're telling you. So here in this example, here we have the highs, the consolidation building, stock is pressing against it with potentially heading lower and getting back into this region or this level. Let's go back to Alibaba here. This stock was building for some time here. We're watching these swing points right here and this gap is being filled. Okay, this was our digestion period right here. So take a look at this box right here. And now we're getting back into it. You know, confidence wise, I'm not overly confident with Alibaba at the moment, but we do have this slight volume picking up right here, so that is a good sign, and we could see higher prices to 95, 97 level, and you know, there would be nothing wrong with the stock at that level at this point in time. Facebook, again, looking at the story, looking at the picture, the highs over here, highs again, highs over here. We came back up to test these highs, bouncing up from this level, from this swing point, and the stock popped higher, rejecting those prices for now. It needs a little more time to build, and then you know, it's selling off at that level. So watching this highs, you can definitely see that if we take it across, that was a solid resistance level. So for now, it needs more time. You know, it's pulling back on lighter volume, so potentially we could see higher prices for it to come back and retest this level. This is really the key level for a longer term position. You're watching for that. Let's see, what do we have? 86.10 level to break. So watch that level. We have Foot Locker. It's been moving really well. A lot of volume coming in the last few days. So if we take a look at the weekly, again, looking at the overall picture here of this stock, let's just move it over. You can see that we have A to B, B to C, potentially C to D if you're looking at the shorter view here. And then we're looking at the swing highs here, volumes picking up. This is the weekly. If we look at the daily, again, let's move it over. Let's take a look. Here it is, popping, pushing, and it's breaking through now. And when these stocks break, you got to learn to hold them, just like we do with GT, right? This pattern, this story went for about, what did we do? 1.2 years. We were consolidating and building this 1.2 years. Does that mean you could have traded it somewhere in here? Yeah, you could have also traded this stock somewhere in this region. For example, right here at this level. Let's go to the daily. Let's zoom in. Okay, so if we look at this story right here, if I take this little piece of the story, I say, okay, the stock came to these lows. I'm going to wait. Stock sold off, heavy volume, heavy energy coming down. So when it comes up, I could short the stock, and there's my little run. And that's okay. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Could you do it the same way in the other direction? Yeah, of course. You could wait for it to break that level and then get in it here. Now, the run didn't last as long because we're looking for a shorter time. We're looking for a shorter story. This is a short story. The longer story was this story right here. That's why that you want to watch the longer time frame view. If you watch the longer time frame view, you have a higher probability of success. So here, looking at the weekly, that's the longer story, the longer, the bigger bomb, you know, whatever context you want to use to help you. That's what you're watching for, the longer view, and that's why this stock for multiple weeks now has been breaking to the upside. So we have about 2 weeks where it's been just trending higher. That's all you need to do when you get into the right stocks at the right time. You just sit, be patient, let them evolve, and take some profits, because what can happen? We have JetBlue here that, you know, broke out here. We have, was it 21-day gain, and now it's selling off again. They pull back, okay? So that's the same thing here with Foot Locker. Here's our story. Here's what we're looking at. Stock's breaking higher, looking good for higher prices as long as it can stay above that level, and if we have a second day follow through. GMCR, same thing, longer story here. Stock went higher. Where's the story telling me? Tried to push on it down here, popped higher, rejected it on heavy volume right here. There's that big bar right there. Okay, came back, retested it here, wasn't ready to break, retested it again, wasn't ready, retested it, finally broke, heavy volume, boom, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. Okay, so that's what we're watching. Nice story, played out in a good, solid 10 point gain to the downside. We got OCR moving well this last couple of weeks as well. I didn't catch this move till recently, actually. And this one, again, build of energy, pop to the upside. Moving well. Don't chase it here if you're not in it, but good win for those that were. SAGE, also the same thing. We got some highs here. Stock tried to break higher, couldn't, rejected those prices, wasn't ready yet, came back a second time. Look at that day. Okay, look what happened that day. Let's zoom in on the, let's say, 10-minute. Okay, broke out to the upside, rejected that level, wasn't ready. Okay, again, over here, broke out up here, still wasn't fully ready, had to come back to retest it, and then finally broke out. So you got to look at it, things on the bigger picture. What is that stock telling you? Let's delete these here. So again, here, multiple times we failed it, multiple times at this level, and at this level wasn't ready, but finally at this level we broke out. So you might have had 3 scratch trades there or 3 failing trades, just was not ready. And then the third one right here, you would have got in probably right here at this point again and reattempted it. And you know, this is what you do. This is what you do the day, the week before, is you're looking for these different highs. You're looking for these trend lines. You're reading the story of the stock, and then you're trying to predict what's going to happen in the story. It's like the crime fighters, the bad guys. Chances are you can predict what's going to happen in the future, and that's what you're doing. Same thing here. Most often, the good guy wins. Same thing here. You predict what's happening to the stock after multiple repetitions of looking at charts. Here we go. Save. Take a look at the weekly. You can look at the monthly even. Look at the monthly. Look how we line up. What's the story telling me? Every month we're coming down to this level. Okay, if you didn't see it, look at the weekly. We've tried right here one time, came down, wasn't ready. Came down again, wasn't ready. Came down, wasn't ready. Came down, wasn't ready. It's building cause. Now, it could have been building cause for the upside right here as well. You just be ready to go either way. You're watching. And where did the volume go? It went to the downside here. Sold off, and it continues lower. And chances are, where am I predicting the story to end, or at least come to? I can estimate highly probability that the stock could come down to this level. It's kind of like you can predict that the good guy isn't going to get away with no scratches. You know, he's going to get a little beat up. Something's going to happen in order to create some drama. Same thing here. I understand there's going to be some drama, meaning some bounces to the upside, and then eventually it'll still attempt to get to our, you know, projected area. So we'll get some drama in there, and then we'll eventually the good guy will still win, or it'll come to where we want it to go. All right, so those are some stocks that we covered. Hope you got a lot out of it. So we got the ATVI moving to the upside. We got BABA kind of pushing to the upside here. Facebook rejecting the prices for now, but we're watching the higher price level there. GMCR as well. You got those prices rejecting at that level. You got the Foot Locker over here trying to push higher. We got GT. We got JetBlue, OCR moving well. Don't chase that one. Stay away, meaning unless you're in it. SAGE also pushing higher, and SAVE has been moving lower. So a lot of good trades there for a lot of different people. I know you've been writing to me. So again, trading volume usually is lighter in the summer, but always keep in mind that, you know, this is about communication and how the stock is communicating to you, and also how you can interpret that communication and learn from it. If you're not willing to listen then you will get a mixed message. Some people try to communicate very quickly, speak very fast, and you may only get 20-40% of what they're saying rather than slowing it down. If you think about this in stocks, if you're trying to look at the chart within just 2 seconds, chances are you won't get the full message that it's trying to tell you. Take it step by step, break it down, and then listen to what it has to say. As you get better to it, you can, listen to things and look at things and really just understand what's going on and what's happening. You can listen to things 3 or 4 times the speed, and kind of like speed reading. As you start reading initially, you start slow, and then as you get better, you'll speed read things, and you'll speed read the stock charts later as well. So because you know the things you're looking for. So in either case, I hope this video was helpful. Just listen to what the stock chart is telling you. It's communicating something to you, and you really got to interpret that message. You got to build up your vocabulary. You got to build up your sentence structures. Eventually, you can get into writing complex sentences, then maybe writing a book, and so on. Reading a book, take it all in slowly, step by step, and you'll get better with time. It's just a matter of practicing and putting things into practice. Thank you for joining me. I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you have questions, don't be shy to email me, and I hope that this video helped you out. Thanks again, and I will see you next week. Remember, spend some time with your friends, spend some time with your family, communicate with them, enjoy part of that life that you have, because again, there's more to life than just the financial gain. Spend that quality time. And then if you're trading poorly maybe this week because the market's idle, you don't need to force the trade. Listen to what it's telling you. Choose the stocks that are speaking loudly to you and go after the highest probability trades. All right. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.